My name is Adam, and today we're going to be talking about diversification. Now, diversification is something that most of us as adults are familiar with. I think we know in a couple different capacities, but essentially today we're going to talk about in the financial capacity and what that means for us and why it's pertinent. The biggest thing that we're looking at is diversification manages risk. We're going to talk about it throughout this slideshow. Just as a spoiler and as a teaser, what we're talking about right now is basically managing your risks so that way you're set up financially in the best way possible. Okay, so going down to a definition per se, or an explanation rather, what is diversification, or why does it matter? Why is it applicable? Diversification matters because you want to manage your risk. Think about when you were a younger kid and you said to your mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, whoever, you said, I want to be an astronaut. And they probably told you, that's great and that's nice, but don't put all your eggs in that basket. I want to still go to school and do a few other things. Or you might have said, I want to be a rock star. Probably told you the same thing. Diversification, cut and dry, is not putting all your eggs in one basket. You're going to be good at a couple different things, whether that's you as an individual, as a 8-year-old kid, or whether that comes to financial matters. You need to go and have more than one option, is one way to put it. For the investing piece, you want to broaden your financial horizons. If you go, think about investing in stocks, for example. If you're going and putting all of your financial eggs in one basket to say Tesla, for example, that's a good and pertinent example right now. Tesla was doing really, really well a couple months ago, and they've gone downhill a decent amount, and I'm sure they're going to go back up. If you had all of the money that you've invested into Tesla, you probably lost a good chunk of change. Comparatively, you might want to think about, instead of just green energy companies, you can think about maybe investing in oil companies as well. That way, when one is going up, the other one probably isn't going down too far, and vice versa. So hopefully you're gaining money on both ends, but that way not all of your money is in one facet and plummeting. I borrowed this quote from Fidelity, and I think it's a great explanation or a piece of advice when involving diversification. To build a diversified portfolio, you should look for investments, stocks, bonds, cash, or others. Notice how there's a multitude of things, not just stocks, just bonds, or just cash. You have a little bit of each, right? Pick one of those, or pick all those whose returns haven't historically moved in the same direction and to the same degree. This way, even if a portion of your portfolio is declining, the rest of your portfolio is more likely to be growing, or at least not declining as much. And that's kind of what we talked about in the last slide, right? So if you want to get involved in energy or transportation, if you're going to invest in Tesla, it might be a good idea to invest in BP as well, to broaden your horizons. Also, maybe not just those. Again, you could go and invest into bonds or into cash. Maybe foreign exchange might be an option you want to go towards. The whole point of it is that don't put all of your financial eggs in one basket. You're going to go and look at different options for us. The next slide, we're going to talk about a couple different things and how we can manage and diversify properly. Okay, so when you're trying to go and diversify, you have to understand that whenever you invest money, there are always types of risk, right? There's no such thing as free lunch. So with that, there's two main types of risk that we're going to talk about here, and how you can kind of hone them down so you can diversify in a proper way. So first off is unsystematic, right? And these are effects on the market, essentially. So the definition reads, fluctuation in stock returns related to specific news associated with a company or industry. The example that I'll use is this. There's a company by the name of Beyond Meat that announced their IPO a couple months back. And they essentially, what they do is they're a vegetarian meat company. And they make vegetarian options of meat. Now, they announced their IPO and they had their initial stock offering. Very shortly after that, Chili's went and agreed in contract with Beyond Meat, and the price skyrocketed, along with a couple other companies as well. But main restaurant franchises got in contract with Beyond Meat. So unsystematically, there was a huge fluctuation in the stock return for Beyond Meat because of a lot of companies were buying and signing contracts with them. awesome times. I was fortunate to get on board with that, which is kind of irrelevant, but it was good times. Now, the opposite side of that is systematic, and that's fluctuations related to market-wide news that affects all stocks. So you have international news or international incidences, or whether that could be something where it's government interjected or from the Federal Reserve that goes and brings down or increases something within the stock market, but that's the entire market. It's not just one facet like Beyond Meat was, just one facet. This systematic does the entire market, regardless of what category it's in. Now, I understand I've been driving home the point of diversification, and I feel, I'm sure as an adult, you probably understand what it is, but just as kind of an aside, I think about growing up in Indiana, I think about farming, right? So corn farmers usually don't just farm corn. They do other things too. They have what you might call a side hustle. The reason behind that is they want to go and they don't want to put all of their eggs in one basket. I know I keep using that phrase, but that's the best and most pertinent thing. And I think we all know what that means. So you'll see things like cover crops, for example. So maybe outside of corn season, they might grow hay or rye or any other type of crop that they deem appropriate, right? But that's so they can go and get a revenue off of more than just corn. That makes sense, right? So you have a poor corn season, and maybe that doesn't rain as much. You have all these other risks, right? Systematic or unsystematic risks. A farmer's going to go and have different options, right? If not cover crops, you have these buffer strips. So you think about erosion within soil. With that, you're going to kind of mitigate that with these buffer strips of grass, and that's going to go and help make sure that their crops are doing well. Also, they can use that for cows. They can have cows roam on that property, which is also another means of cash for them. And also tilling, right? So they're going in there, they're making sure that they take care of the soil and they till that up. And the reason that I include that in here is that they're taking care of their property. They're taking care of that which is going to go and give them return. So within that whole idea and this whole aside, you have to go and think of more than one way to get a revenue stream going. That's diversification as an aside with farming, and I hope that kind of made sense to you. Very similar to how we've talked before. Application for diversification, entry, mid-level, and executive. Entry level, I think you need to understand personally and financially that your business and your home need to be diversified, right? So hopefully at a younger age, a person can start investing money and not just have it in one avenue and one facet, but in a multitude. Also understanding that more than likely their business has investments as well, instead of just honing in on one category to broaden their spectrum. Now from the mid-level and executive level, I think it's important here to think about for investments, but then also for the company or whatever that business may be, to start thinking if diversification might be a good option for them. And the reason being, there's some niche markets. So, for example, if it's a brain surgery or a brain surgeon's office, maybe he shouldn't be doing toe surgery. It's an option, but probably not the best thing. But for a lot of businesses, diversification can really help hit different markets and kind of cover you if maybe one market isn't picking up as quickly as another. So I think as both mid and executive level employees and smart thinkers, when you start thinking about what other industries and what other facets and markets we can tap to bring in more revenue. As with always, ethics play a huge role in what we do, and much like I've said before, it's our job and our duty to go and do the right thing with the funds for all stakeholders involved. That's incredibly pertinent for us. We need to make sure that we're doing everything the right way so we can put our heads on our pillows and in a good way at night. In our Bible verse, it says, "For by your words you will be justified, and by your words you will be condemned." So again, how you do things, and I'd even include actions in that. And I know I didn't write the book, but at the same time, I think it's very pertinent that what you say and what you do have consequences. So hopefully make the right decision with that. I hope today's lesson on diversification has been a little bit of a refresher, and maybe you learned something or things got put in the context a little bit differently for you. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you next week.